Here we go, one more time. Everybody's feeling fine. Here we go now. Yes, here we go. When got the flow.
Well, here we are, back again. I hope you guys are excited as I am to finally have some meaningful football going on. Now, yeah, I'm sure we're all a little bit bitter that Michael gets to taint the White Buffalo because, I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't going to be clean after any of us were done with it, but for the love of God, I've never thought I'd put hand sanitizer on my penis, but I guess I will after I bring home that trophy this year. But speaking of this year, just got to kind of recap some of these crazy trade deals that happened, guys. I mean, Yager sells out for this year, gets Peyton Manning and Antonio Brown, shoring up two of his only weaknesses on his team, looking like a heavy contender coming in. Jake picks up C.J. Anderson, quality back, only 1 year of experience, but still very good pickup for the picks he gave up, and then flips it around and gets the #1 rookie running back on most boards coming into this draft. That's looking good. And then, you got teams like the Hitmen that made solid moves, making a much better roster coming into the week. Each week they could actually compete this season. Sap's running backs. Sap's running backs. He likes them young. I can say that. I'm probably forgetting some other moves that happened, but for the most part, everyone made their team better. It'll be a fun season. I hope you guys are as ready as I am to break down the Week 1 games. It's about time. It is about damn time. Here we go. The first game on the docket this week is our defending champion, still on that little honeymoon phase of the Great White Buffalo. I'm sure he's broken in a couple times. And man, that thing has a mouth on it. God, every fucking email, I feel like they're running us down. But let's take a look what he's got this week. You got Andrew Luck, arguably the best dynasty player to have. Jeremy Hill, Carlos Hyde, two young running backs, took swings. Hit on Jeremy Hill last year. Carlos Hyde yet to be seen. Dez Bryant. I don't even need to say anything more about Dez Bryant. The guy is a monster. Could be the #1 receiver in Dynasty for years on end. We have no idea. DeAndre Hopkins, this is a big year for him. Finally a #1 receiver in Houston. If he had a quarterback, this guy would be scary. But unfortunately, until Houston gets that figured out, he might be limited. But still very good value and upside in DeAndre Hopkins. Travis Kelce. This year is Travis Kelce's year according to all the people, but Michael did key in on him a little bit last year. I got to give him credit on that. He saw what was coming with Kelce. Devontae Adams, sneaky good pickup last year, especially after this Jordan Nelson injury. Oh my God, the ACL is just gone, but Devontae gets some #2 wide receiver snaps and arguably the best offense in the league, especially when it comes to passing the ball. Steven Gostkowski, just solid. I mean, he's a kicker. He's solid. New England. Brady's got a chip on his shoulder. He'll probably be kicking a couple field goals this year. Michael has a defense yet to be named, so that's going to be interesting coming into the first week. Let's not forget that he picked up Arian Foster in the draft day deal today, or draft deal day this season. Sorry guys for misspeaking. Retained Christian Michael, even though it looked bleak for Christian down in Seattle. Ironically, gets traded to Dallas, improving his value, and then a guy who Michael cut at roster cuts, Fred Jackson from Buffalo, cloudy backfield in Buffalo, actually becomes the #2 in Seattle. So both running backs get more value there. Gio Bernard, a handcuff. Just picked up Charles Johnson. Sammy Watkins, who was, out of all the rookie receivers last year, he didn't have the best year, but I think he has the best talent. He just needs a quarterback. Solid roster, and his starters this week are looking pretty good. It's going to be a tough matchup for Bout That Action. But Bout That Action comes in with the solid and predictable Matt Ryan. Right now starting Rashad Jennings for the Giants. No one's really sure how that backfield's going to play out, but Rashad is supposed to get the majority of the carries, projected to get 23 points this week. Eddie Lacy, a cornerstone about that Actions team, projected to get 36. NFL.com is insane unless they think Lacy's just going to pound every touchdown and Devontae Adams will get no points, which I'm all in favor for over here. AJ Green, another top receiver, had his season kind of cut down last year because of injuries. Brandon Marshall, another guy, solid. Season cut down because of injuries. Martellus Bennett, just the guy plays well for the first month of the season. We'll see how it goes after that. Got Mike Evans in the flex this week. Apparently there's a worry about an ankle injury, so he is kind of playing it safe. Might need to switch out depending on what happens with the starters. After playing a musical chairs with kickers this week, he's finally decided on Chandler Catanzaro from Arizona and the Dolphins defense against Washington, which is pretty much on most boards the consensus matchup for week 1 in terms of defense. Number 1 guy on the team, Le'Veon Bell, suspended for 2 weeks. Won't be back until week 3. Julius Randle, the second-round draft pick. He had high hopes. I have high hopes for him, but geez, that Dallas backfield. What can we say about that Dallas backfield? Tevin Coleman, who was announced to start today, could be a major player. My man crush, Dorial Green Beckham, not going to do anything. Slated at number 4, hoping for a breakout year. Not much really said about the bench. I don't think much is going to change unless a Mike Evans injury happens. Right now, projections, it's about that action over slap and pickle going on the NFL.com projections, but we know what the hell that means. In fact, little tidbit information for you guys. The email that we got after Michael put in the draft information projected me to go 14-0 and win the league, but probably not win the championship. But just wanted to throw that out there, see if you guys got any crazy, ridiculous emails like that too. In terms of picking them this week, I gotta go with myself. There's a lot to be said about humility, but not here. Not today. Not this week. About that action, moves to 1-0. The defending champion stumbles out of the gate. We'll see what happens. On to our next matchup. Our second matchup this week puts Neil versus John. Always Late to Cromartie versus the Publix Crab Special. Why John did not grab Jameis Winston, we'll never know. That would have been great. And only if we had IDPs, because Neil would have to have one of the Cromartie brothers. Cousins, I don't even know. There's so many different versions of that family. I think Antonio has like 12 kids. Anyways, on to what we're here to talk about, the rosters. Neil is trying to start the right quarterback this week. He's rolling the dice right now with Matt Stafford. We'll see if he can get it right. For his sake, I'm hoping he does. For our sakes, let's keep the streak alive, baby. Come on now. Let's make this 15 straight weeks. You got DeMarco Murray, Marshawn Lynch, solid running backs. Jeremy Maclin, we'll see what he can do in Kansas City. High hopes. Andy Reid drafted the guy. Demaryius Thomas, who can perform, especially if Peyton can throw anywhere near what he was doing a season ago or even 2 seasons ago. Hopefully 2 seasons ago for Neil. For me, hopefully like the end of last year where he's just like into the dirt or into the defender's hands every play. That'd be great. Greg Olsen, solid tight end, especially now with Kelvin going down. Should get a ton of targets. Andre Ellington, we'll see if he can finally rebound after last year's everyone predicted him to be a huge player. Didn't quite come to fruition. Hauska and the Bills D versus Indy, which that could be a nice little matchup. See, I don't know. The Bills are a good defense, but Andrew Luck just seems ways to get it done. We'll see. In terms of messing up the quarterback play this week, we'll see. Joe Flacco will probably go off for 40 points on the bench. Who knows? Maybe Bryce Petty will come in and start in relief and score 36. The way Neil's quarterbacks work out, that is probably how it will happen. Jordan Reed, the injury-prone tight end, on the bench this week. Darren Sproles, who could play a big part in the passing game, according to reports. Jordan Matthews, solid receiver. Jalen Strong, nice pickup. A lot of decent young guys on the bench. We'll see how it works out this year. Bishop Sankey, maybe he can finally get it going. For Publix Crab Special, we got Colin Kaepernick starting at quarterback this week. Well, it's that or Derek Carr, so we'll see if Colin can get it turned around. He's lost a lot in San Francisco. That team just in general has lost a ton. Running back, Justin Forsett, Frank Gore. Forsett, solid receiving, keep it going. Frank Gore, new time in Indy. Got to be better than Trent Richardson was. You really can't be worse. Julian Edelman, Roddy White. Questions there at receiver. We'll see what it can happen. Edelman's pretty solid if he can stay on the field. Jimmy Graham to Seattle. Jimmy Graham's an awesome tight end. We'll see how the Seahawks use him. He could take a step back this year. Mark Ingram, diamond in the rough last year. No one saw that coming. Maybe keep it going against Arizona, their front four, after getting rid of Darnell Dockett. See what they can do. Dan Bailey, Seahawks defense, which is always a pretty safe bet against St. Louis. If Nick Foles can actually throw halfway decent, that might not be a good matchup, but that secondary in Seattle is just so good. I doubt Foles will look good in his first game. On the bench, we got Dwayne Bowe, Vincent Jackson, Justin Blackman. Now, I think it's just a placeholder because there's a guy on his roster that's not even in the league. Philip Dorsett, Rashad Perriman, Devin Smith, a lot of youngsters on this roster. John definitely did the biggest age turnover this season. We'll see how it goes. In terms of projections, NFL.com has this one really close. Always Late to Camardi with 151. Publix Crab Special at 146. Pick'em. I'm gonna go Publix this week. We'll go Publix Crab Special, not by a large margin. I think Colin Kaepernick will do decent against the Minnesota defense. DeMarco Murray, I don't think is gonna do great against the Falcons. We'll go with John this week. I'll probably be kicking myself. I know as soon as the end of the season comes around, there'll be a Heath Pick'em fucking record, and I'll be awful. But yeah, there we go. Publix Crab Special goes to 1-0 this week. Always Late to Camardi 0-1. We'll see how that plays out. On to our third matchup of the week, guys. Our third matchup brings the trade wonder kid, Pocket Rocket, Yager. I don't even know if half this roster was even on his team last year. I can see 4 guys right now that definitely weren't. But this is probably one of the scariest rosters on paper in the whole entire league. You got Peyton Manning at quarterback. It's probably his last year, but Yager just wants to get that Buffalo back to his house. We don't know what kind of trauma it's enduring. I'm sure he's going to try to give it a blanket, give it some cocoa, make sure everything's going to be alright before he tries to slip it a finger. We got to prevent that. Setting our poor Buffalo up for sheer just disappointment. At running back, we got LaShawn McCoy, AP, coming back from whipping his kids with a belt and sticks and all kinds of things. Hopefully he can take his frustration out of the 49ers defense. Julio Jones, Antonio Brown. Sick wide receiver combo. Probably one of the best in the league, hands down. Rob Gronkowski, another guy from a trade. Alfred Morris, Adam Vinatieri, the Rams defense versus Seahawks. That's a solid lineup there, boys. The bench, a lot of suspended people, a lot of people on injury reserve. We got Josh Gordon, LeGarrette Blount, Ray Rice, all not playing this week. In terms of the bench, that's where the young guys sit. Except for we got a couple old dudes, Jay Cutler and Owen Daniels. I don't see much lineup change going here. Ryan Tannehill, who another sneaky pickup. He could be really good this year if he can use those weapons out in Miami. Nice pickup, nice quarterback to the future. Now on the flip side, let's check out the Hitman's roster. We got Cam Newton and Jonathan Stewart. A lot of Panthers blue, former Panthers blue on this team. We got Cam Newton, Jonathan Stewart against Jacksonville. Should be a good matchup. We'll see if that Jaguars defense has improved. I know they hired the right coach to do it. He's probably getting close to being on the hot seat. We'll see if that defense can actually rush the passer this year. The other running back spot, we got Chris Ivory. He's going against the Browns. They actually got a decent front seven, and the Jets line is not that great. Then we got the receiver rookie tandem of Amari Cooper and Nelson Aguilar. Both projected to do decent numbers, especially in their first regular season game. Charles Clay at tight end. Solid pickup if Tyrod can get him the ball. Should be a good play. Steve Smith, the ageless wonder. He always seems to do something. He always plays with a chip on his shoulder. I've never seen a guy play so angry and so hard than I have Steve Smith. Then we got the Packers rounding out the special teams and defense with Mason Crosby and the Packers D. On the bench, Darren McFadden, who could be getting a lot of carries in Dallas until he fractures his kneecap. Deshaun Jackson for the Redskins, who's a solid play if there was a quarterback to get him the ball. CJ Spiller, who I did not mention in the trades. That was a really good pickup, I thought, the CJ Spiller deal. He could do some big things down in New Orleans. Torrey Smith, Vernon Davis, Kobe Fleener, Tavon Austin. Another young quarterback on the rise, I think, Teddy Bridgewater. Everyone's predicting big things for him this year. We'll see what happens. At some point in the season, he might have to sit Cam Newton down and play Teddy Bridgewater because his next player on the roster, Kelvin Benjamin, Newton's number one target, is on IR, won't be playing this season. Big hit. Then you got some young Bucks and Allen Hurns, Jameis Winston, David Cobb, Buck Allen, and the Panthers defense. In terms of projections this week, it's a pretty sizable victory for Pocket Rocket and NFL.com's estimation. 192 to 133. That's a pretty sized win, and I got to agree with the experts here. That Pocket Rocket roster is just stacked on paper. I don't see a way someone could throw that, at least not until some injuries happen, or maybe someone starts playing like shit again, like LaShawn McCoy. We'll see, but Pocket Rocket, I'm predicting 1-0. Hitman 0-1, trying to turn the corner after last year's terrible shaming season, but damn, those pictures were sexy though, am I right? Damn. On to the fourth game, guys. I can't get flustered here. I'm blushing. On to the fourth game. I don't think there's any appropriate way to follow up talking about those pictures Todd sent us. Everything after that is just a disappointment. But I'm going to do my best when talking about our next matchup, which is Jake versus Matt. PY Can't Handle Me versus Sandusky's. Let's get right into it. Jake did a lot of moves, a lot of retooling of his team this year. Not quite as much as Yager, but some solid pickups. He's got Russell Wilson at quarterback against the St. Louis defense. With Jimmy Graham out there, who knows? He could just start lighting it up, throwing to Jimmy Graham. Don't think that's the case, but we'll see how he does this year. C.J. Anderson, we'll see if it was just a couple week wonder or if he's actually a solid running back. Latavius Murray, same thing. If these guys actually play the way that they showed glimpses of, this could be a very scary running back duo. Then you got T.Y. Hilton and Odell Beckham, one of the more solid receiving corps in the league. I don't know if there's many better than that. Maybe one or two. At tight end, Eric Ebron, who's trying to have a bounce back season. Most rookie tight ends don't do too much. You got Ebron kind of cheap. We'll see how that plays out for him. Brandon Cooks, who's now the number one receiver out in New Orleans. You get a ton of targets. It's never a bad thing when Drew Brees is throwing you the football, and the Saints will have to probably run up that score because I don't think they can play any damn defense. At kicker, you got Mr. Reliable Justin Tucker. And at defense, you got J.J. Watt flexing on people, making fun of the Redskins' terrible lines and no music. Texas defense versus Alex Smith and that Kansas City offense. On the bench, you got some solid young guys. Allen Robinson, Marcus Mariota, Todd Gurley, Ertz, Denard Robinson, Keenan Allen. There's a lot of options here. That roster is looking pretty good. A lot of young QBs, Blake Bortles, Mariota, Johnny Manziel. So a lot of upside on this roster. On the flip side, here's the Sandusky's, fresh off beating the league in the 4-game suspension. We got Tom Brady going up against the Steelers defense. Tom's going to have a lot of chips on his shoulder this season, and a lot of hits will probably roll. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be because of his passing or because of his snarky remarks, but there's a lot of potential there. Now, his receiving core leaves a little bit to be desired, but he's done more with less, so we'll see how it goes. At running back, you got Jamal Charles, Lamar Miller. Jamal Charles faces a semi-decently difficult matchup in Houston, but the matchups really don't affect Jamal Charles too often unless they hurt him. Lamar Miller versus the Redskins defense, that's the only way that doesn't work out well for him is if the Dolphins just keep throwing the ball on the Redskins' terrible secondary. At receiver, you got Randall Cobb and Andre Johnson. Andre Johnson's trying to rebound. He actually has a quarterback this season. That could be a huge thing. At one point, he was arguably the best receiver in football. Randall Cobb benefits from that injury of Jordy Nelson, becomes the number 1 in Green Bay. Jordan Cameron, a tight end in Miami. Another thing, it might just be too many people in Miami to get the ball around, but a solid guy right there at tight end. The rookie Devin Funchess, who automatically became the number 1 after the injury to Kelvin, at least from what I've seen. We'll see how that plays out for him. And rounding out his team this week, he's got the Vikings, Blair Walsh, and the Vikings defense. In terms of looking at the bench, he's got Tyrod Taylor and Sam Bradford, who could be 2 solid quarterbacks this season. We'll see how it goes. I think he leads the league in running backs that aren't on a roster with Trent Richardson and Monte Ball. Devontae Parker at receiver could play huge dividends down the line, and Kevin White also. So some young receivers on the roster. Robert Griffin, who until he gets cut, I don't even know. Even if he ever gets cut, I don't know if you can let him go just because you don't know where he's going to end up, what he could do. DeAngelo Williams, who should be getting the start in Pittsburgh for the next 2 weeks. And unfortunately, he's got Jordy Nelson on IR. Right now, NFL.com predicts the Sandusky's to win 158-155 in one of the closest matchups of the week in terms of projections. I think I'm going to have to go against NFL.com. I think Jake gets this one this week, not by much. I predict PY Can't Handle Me gets that first victory, goes 1-0. The Sandusky's fall to 0-1. It's going to be a close matchup. It can go either way. I'm not going to be surprised if I'm wrong on this one. And as a matter of fact, I'm not going to be surprised if I'm 0-5 in picks this week. In fact, it's probably a stone cold lock. Go against everything I've said. With that being said, let's get into our last matchup of the week. We've got Turn Down for What? Sap versus Donde Está la Biblioteca and Carter. Carter has not set his roster yet. They're all empty. Projected 0 points. Not even going to break down the bench because you guys have seen the roster reports. So let's see what Sap's got. Sap's bringing out Drew Brees, Melvin Gordon, TJ Yeldon. I told you he likes those running backs young, guys. At receiver, a very good combo. This could be the best combo in the league. We'll see how Alshon does at number 1 as opposed to number 2. But he seemed to do fine last year when Brandon Marshall was out. Yeah, Calvin Johnson and Alshon Jeffrey. That's solid. There's nothing wrong with that. Tyler Eifert, coming back from injury. We'll see how he does in that Cincinnati offense. Jarvis Landry, who was really good last year. The only guy in the Dolphins receiving corps looks like he's going to be getting targets no matter what. You got a guy like that in the flex, you're doing some good things in terms of your receiver position. At kicker, you've got Parkey, who was one of the best kickers in the league last year. The Chiefs' defense, pretty solid generally. Pretty solid defense there. At running back, you got Chris Johnson. I don't think there's any chance he puts him starting this week, but who knows? Melvin Gordon does not look good in preseason. Definitely not starting Jonas Gray. Definitely not starting Jonas Gray this week. He's got a couple of decent quarterbacks on the bench. Andy Dalton, Phillip Rivers. the ageless wonder, Jason Witten, as much as it pains me to say it, the guy just puts up stats. Possibly a young phenom in Matt Jones at running back. We'll see how this all plays out, guys, but obviously, with Carter not sending his roster yet, it predicts Sap to win this week. Just looking at a brief look who Carter could tote out this season, I think it'll be close. I'm going to go Carter because the young running backs for Sap don't do too much this week. That's what I'm going with. Carter goes to 1-0. Donde Esta La Biblioteca starts off with that win. Sap goes to 0-1, trying to rebound after a disappointing start of the season. And with that, guys, the Week 1 preview, somewhat roundabout off-season wrap-up is done. Sorry this one was really long, but if you guys got through it, let me know in the email thread, man. I will try to find time to do these where I actually break it down, let you know what I'm actually thinking about some of these guys. Not that my opinion means a damn, but I think it just maybe comes off as more of an actual thing. Let me know what you guys think of the new logo and everything like that, and I will be sure to hear from you guys sometime this week, because I'm sure some shit's going to go down, some texts or emails will be sent, and some shit will be talked. So, until next week, guys, peace out. Let's all pray for the Buffalo because we know it's not in a good spot. Let's try to get it back to Virginia this season. Let's all make a pact back to hashtag Great White Buffalo back to VA. Do it. I'm out, guys. Later.